Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Future is Bilingual podcast. My name is Heather. It is the last week of 2020, and this will be the last episode of this year. So it's going to be a short episode with just a recap of some interesting statistics and some new information for the coming year. So first, I have some statistics. They're only from Spotify, unfortunately, so they're not comprehensive. They don't include all the data that I would like to have, but they're at least something. So I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about who's listening to this podcast along with you. So first, it's majority women. 68% of listeners, at least on Spotify, are women versus only 27% male, and a certain percentage that either didn't specify or identified as non-binary. Another interesting data point is that the large majority is between the ages of 28 and 44. So that was 80% of listeners that were in those that age range. And then Spotify divides that up into two different groups. So 49% were between 28 and 34. That's my age range. And then another 31% were 35 to 44. So again, a very large majority in that age range. The top 5 countries that were listening through Spotify were the United States, Poland, Canada, France, and the UK. And filling out the top 10 was Spain, Germany, Ireland, Italy, and Brazil. So that was interesting. And Mexico and South Africa also had a high percentage up there. So unfortunately, as I said, this isn't comprehensive. It doesn't cover all the different platforms that you can get podcasts through. So I have a request for you guys, and that is that I've created a quick survey. So I'm just going to call it the listener survey, and you can tell me a little bit about yourself. Everything is optional on it. So if you want to tell me the languages you know, the country you're from, maybe where you're living, just kind of that interesting data points and information, I would really appreciate that. So I'm going to put the link, I'll put it in the show notes, but I'm also going to have it in my Instagram profile under a link tree. So that just means I'm going to have a link that's going to bring you to a bunch of links. So why a bunch of links? Well, I have another survey that I've created, and that is for anyone who would like to be a guest. So it's just a way for me to get the same information from anybody who would like to be on the show. And maybe it'll just make it easier rather than having to write me an email. It kind of gives you a format, so you don't have to wonder what you should say to me. I'll have the questions that I need you to answer. You put your email, and then that way I can get in touch with you. You can, of course, still get in touch with me through email, tfibpodcast@gmail.com. So as I said, I'll put the links to these on my Instagram profile. And if you don't do Instagram, of course, you can just write to me by email. So that's it for the little statistics that I could get from Spotify, but I do find those interesting. And again, I want people to fill out the survey so I can have a better picture of who is listening to this podcast. And in that listener survey, there's also a couple questions asking you what kind of episodes you'd like to hear, if there's any topics you'd like to hear more of, things of that nature. So it's really personalized and it's all optional. So if there's things you don't want to answer, you can just skip them. So we're going to end today's episode with voices from previous guests. But before we do that, I just want to make a quick announcement. And if you follow me on Instagram, you've probably already seen I was accepted into a doctoral program in Canada for next year. So if you don't know, I live in New England, in Massachusetts, in the United States, so the northeast part of the United States. And next year, in the fall, I'm going to be starting a doctoral program in education in the field of societies, cultures, and languages. So I'm very excited and very relieved to be accepted into that program. And along with my family, we will be moving up to the area of Ottawa, but not in Ottawa City itself. So Ottawa is the capital of Canada, and I will be at the University of Ottawa. And we don't know where we're going to be exactly, but we don't love cities, so we'll see. We'll see where we end up. So that is really big news for myself and for my family. I'm sure I'll be telling you more about it in the year to come. So if you've listened to some episodes or you follow me on Instagram, then you know I've been trying to introduce more French to my kids with this idea in mind that I was thinking of applying and then I applied and I was waiting for my answer. So this is why I've been doing more French so that if and when we go to Canada, my kids will at least have a basis in English and French, the two languages of Canada. So without further ado, I want to now bring you some voices of previous guests. And if you haven't listened to their interviews, I highly suggest that you go back and listen to them, as they were all very interesting and very different and taught me a lot about learning languages. So I hope that you enjoy them, and I wish everybody a very safe and happy new year. And I will be bringing you a lot more content and a lot more interviews in 2021. So stay tuned and be well.
Hi everyone, this is Emily from The Future is Bilingual, episode 5. I'm here to wish you a very happy new year in English and in Arabic and in French. So, happy new year, كل سنة وانتم طيبين وبون année.
Hi, this is Dominika from episode 8, speaking Polish and English. I wanted to wish everybody Happy New Year, szczęśliwego nowego roku.
Cześć, my name is Marcin. I was on episodes 10 and 11 of season 1, and I co-hosted season 2. I speak Polish, English, and intermediate German, as well as some basic Russian, French, Norwegian, Italian, and maybe Spanish. So thank you, Heather, for the chance to be a part of the podcast, and a Happy New Year. Szczęśliwego nowego roku. Frohes neues Jahr.
Here's Tommy from Tomasz Buffer Teaching. I took part in the podcast for The Future is Bilingual in Season 2, Episode 2. I would like to wish you all a Happy New Year in English, Hungarian and in German. Happy New Year, Boldog új évet, and Frohes neues Jahr.
Hello, this is Amy. You heard my story on episode 3 of season 2 of The Future is Bilingual. I speak French, English and Spanish, and I would like to wish you all a Happy New Year, une bonne année, un próspero año nuevo.
Hello, bonjour, привет. This is Ina Figatina, the author of Trilingual Me Moi Trilingue. Make sure you check out Heather's episode where I discuss my dual language children's book written in English and French, as well as talk about my journey to becoming trilingual in English, French, and Russian. Happy New Year! Bonne année! S Novым годом!
Thank you again to my wonderful guests for taking the time to record those messages. And thank you to everyone who is listening and tuning in, whether it's your first time or you've been listening since the beginning. I appreciate you guys so much. Feel free to reach out and write to me. I hope to hear from you guys in the coming year and maybe even have you on as a guest. I want to wish all of you a wonderful new year. Szczęśliwego nowego roku. Une bonne année. Un prospero año nuevo. 새해 복 많이 받으세요. Take care, stay well, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.